Hello and welcome to this live stream of Thirsty Thursday with Formal Shark during the lockdown. Um, it's third, fourth week of lockdown, and we've now got three more. So hopefully this is to keep me from going slowly insane, and some of you can watch how bad I am at presenting. That's the basic idea of this show. We're thinking about doing it, if I can, weekly. We'll try and get my co-host, because although people may think that me and Bob live together and are married, we're not. So he's all safe in his own house under lockdown, but we'll hopefully work on something with Zoom so we can get something like our normal format of show. So a few things. First of all, my internet is bad, so you might get some like judders like that. Chances are it's our end, not yours, so don't worry. And also, we'll just put it online. Normally when we do live shows, I've got a whole load of people at the back of us sort of keeping me looking fantastic, and I just have to speak and they make everything look good. Unfortunately, them people, our producer Phil Lloyd Roberts has done some assistance, but unfortunately because of lockdown, it's all down to me. So if you see things are a little bit jarred and not up to the normal quality, it's because of this guy, not the people that would normally give you this good quality stuff. As you may have seen on the lead up to this, we were showing some videos that we've already done, Arch 2, that we did, I think it was back in 2018 that opened, and we did a video for their launch. We need to really support these businesses. They're completely shut, other businesses are doing takeouts and stuff like that, but we need to make sure that we like them on Facebook, encourage them, so when all this is over, we can go out and get absolutely plastered. That's my plan. As soon as this is all over, run to the pub and things like that. Just the normal housekeeping of, we do have some social media that it should have come up if I pressed the right button, but it hasn't. Anyway, formalshark.co.uk is our website. Once it's back up and running, it's been down today unfortunately. You can find us on facebook.com/formalshark and at let's drink underscore actually, let's drink. See, that's why I always let Bob do them sort of stuff. So, what am I drinking? Well, it's Durham gin. That is a unique recipe of botanicals. This includes, juniper, celery seeds, elderflower, pink peppercorns, and spring water. It is 40%. It is an AVB of 40%, like I just said. 100 milliliter or 20 cl bottles costs about $25.99 from the Durham distillery website. I'll do a full-on tasting, but gin is not my forte. I do enjoy it, but the notes that are wabbed off the internet says that the peppercorns should give a distinct and warm spice. The celery seed should add a distinct savoury character, and then there's a sweetness brought in by the elderflower. So we'll now get on to why we are here, and that is the history of gin. Now, for some reason, somebody's been playing about with my settings. That's me. This is very professional. Talk amongst yourselves. Right. Now we're back. So, apologies about that. The history of gin. Now, gin has a fantastic history. I really enjoy looking into this. And it is something that people might want to look into more. It's got a rich history, but we will skip through a few of it. We'll go through a brief history of how the gin craze started. We will look into some pictures, or a picture called Gin Lane by Hogarth, and then we'll do a bit at the end of that. We'll also have a look at some other videos that we've done, and hopefully if anybody's done any messaging us on Facebook, then I may interact with you. Chances are nobody is watching it, so if not, we'll just skip. Bye. So, gin history. As early as 200 AD, juniper has been seen as having medical properties. In 1055, medical scholars in Italy were writing down that juniper had health as a health remedy. Juniper was also used and carried around during with other aromatics during the plague. So, does it ward off plague-like stuffs and in pandemics? Well, if Trump can say that magic wonder drugs work, we can claim that gin's going to solve everything. But obviously, that's not true, just in case some loon decides to drink too much and get drunk and blame me and like lick tramps or something, I don't know. Anyway, Trump distilling drinks goes back as far as 1560, with the Huguenots in Flanders making a juniper distilled drink. In 1585, the English fighting with the Dutch against the Spanish are introduced to a juniper spirit. And it's from this, they'll drink this before battle, and this is where the term Dutch courage comes from. So, I mean, if I was going into battle, I went shopping earlier, so that was practically like battle, trying to keep away from people. You'd have a bit of this to get you through it. But you can't do that, then drive. So, anyway. So, the gin craze, or the first gin craze in England, really started in 1689 during the Glorious Revolution. Dutchman William of Orange takes the British throne, and the juniper spirit drinks becomes fashionable. By the 1690s, beer is heavily taxed, brandy and wine is definitely heavily taxed because we're at war with France, and that's stuff that would come over from France. And London is changing dramatically. It's starting to really urbanise. There's a lot more poor and working class are flooding into the city. At the same time, wages are starting to rise and food costs are starting to come down. That results in having a little bit of disposable income. At the same time, there was also a bumper year for crop, so it meant landowners were looking for something to do. And people were encouraged to make gin, so they did it in the bathtubs and all sorts. And that's where things like bathtub gin comes from. So by the 1720s, 5 million gallons of gin were being distilled in London. That was roughly enough for everybody in London, that's like everybody, women, children, men, to have a pint of gin a week. And with gin, there was no rules or cultures with it. So people were just drinking it, like going, hey, drinking loads of it, drinking pints of it, just getting absolutely sloshed. And with it having association with medical things, it went across genders and class. So there's no stigma to it like there was other alcohols. So for the first time ever, men and women would drink together in gin parlours, and they would drink lots and lots of gin. So at this time in London, the conditions were pretty crap. People were in squalid conditions, working conditions were bad, poor diet. There was very little recreational things to do. Life was just pretty grim. And Francis said it quite nicely. He later wrote that the enjoyment of the poor at this time was limited. They often had only two things: sexual intercourse and drinking. And of that, drunkenness is far more desired. All of this drunkenness led gin to be associated with the causes of crime and social instability. The Middlesex Magistrate Courts said that the principal cause of vice and debauchery committed amongst the inferior sort. So let's face it, people like me, drunkards like me, it's my fault. It's the drink that's doing it. So you had all these do-gooders basically starting to decry gin. And what they were saying was it was the debauchery of William... I'll put my teeth back in. Womanly virtues, and drinking women were seen as promiscuous, adulterous, rebellious spreaders of disease. So all this anti-gin mumbo-jumbo then turned around so that in 1736 the first Gin Act came in. And this was to tax retail gin at a rate of 20 shillings a gallon on spirits and required licensees to take out a £50 annual licence to sell gin, a fee equivalent to £8,000 today. The aim was to effectively prohibit the trade by making it uneconomical. Only two licenses were ever taken out. The trade became illegal, consumption dipped, but then consumption rise well above what it had before. And they repealed the Act in 1743, following mass law breaking and violence, particularly towards informers. And informers would be paid £5 to reveal the whereabouts of illegal gin shops. The illegal distilleries that were much more deadly and poisonous and would get you blind drunk, and that's where they think the term blind drunk came from. Now at that time, one interesting character is Captain Dudley Bradstreet, an illicit gin peddler, also had a sideline as an agent for the government, informing on illegal gin producers. So he made the stuff and then he tattled on the other people so that they would get shut down. Now, as you know, snitches get stitches. So he wanted to have an air of anonymity. He wanted to be hidden. So what you would do here is he came up with this idea where you would put your money in the cat's mouth and say, "Puss, give me 2p worth of gin and you'll have..." And then what you'd hear is a meow, meow, and gin would come out of the copper piping. So this gets us to a nice point in history before we get on to the next section. And before we do that, I'm going to show you a quick trailer for our road trip movie that should be coming out some point in the future. It was a few years ago we've recorded that. We are still working on it. It's still a very exciting project for us, and I thought I would put the trailer in as our halfway little break. Do now? Liquid lunch?
Yeah.
So, welcome back to that, after that. So, yeah, we've got that coming online. Also, check out our website. We have a load of podcasts while you're bored that's going on. A load of different videos. We're going to try and get some content up here. We're going to try and do some cool little videos like this and try and just do something to mainly entertain ourselves, but hopefully entertain you guys as well. So what we'll do is we will get on to what I think is a very great pieces of work. Well, not great, but interesting pieces of work by Hogarth. And what he did is at this point, he did two. He did Gin Lane and Beer Street. And what they did is they showed two different things. The Gin Lane is a debauched place of sort of drunkenness and sin, and then the lovely place of beer drinkers that were all lovely, holier than thou. Now, as a mainly beer drinker, I might agree with this. But what we'll do is we will have a quick look at more Gin Lane. So it's set in the parish of St Giles, a notorious slum district that Hogarth depicts in several works around the time. Gin Lane depicts the squalor and despair of the community raised on gin. Desperation, death and decay pervade the scene. The only businesses that flourish serve the gin industry. So now what we're going to do is have a little look around and see what people are doing and take the different images of that. So the first is the pawnbroker, where the owners are taking their vital possessions, the carpenter taking his saw and the housewife her cooking utensils, so that the alcoholic residents of the street can have a few pennies to feed their habit. Another person doing very well is the undertaker, A lot of people are gin soaked and then thus dying. Most shockingly, the focus of the picture is a woman in the foreground who's addled by gin, and she's driven to prostitution, and this is shown in her syphilitic sores on her legs. She's letting a baby slip unheeded from her arms and plunging to her death in the stairwell of the gin cellar below. Half naked, she's showing everything, nothing to leave to the imagination. She has no concern for anything other than a pinch of snuff. But the mother wasn't just from the imagination of Hogarth. She was actually based on Judith Defoe. That in 1732, she went and got her 2-year-old child from the workhouse, where it had been given a new set of clothes. She then strangled it and left the infant's body in a ditch so that she could sell the clothes to buy more gin. In another case, an elderly woman, Mary Ellsworth, let a toddler burn to death while she slept in a gin-induced stupor. And these such cases really helped and were put to prominence by the anti-gin movement. The gin cellar above it has the words "drunk for a penny, dead drunk for 2p, and a clean straw for nothing." There's a lot of images of madness and despair fills the scene, and there's this loony in the street beating himself over the head with a pair of bellows while holding a baby impaled on a spike. The dead child's frantic mother rushes from the house, screaming in horror. The barman even, that has taken his own life because he's in wreck and ruin now because nobody can afford a haircut. You've got the skeleton of a poet or balladeer resting, perhaps dead of starvation, as the unsold moralising pamphlets of the gin, and his pamphlet is called "The Downfall of Mrs. Gin," slips from his basket. Next to him sits a black dog, a symbol of despair and desperation. Outside the distillery, there's a fight broken out, and there's a cripple hitting a blind man over the head with some crutches. There's a woman quelling a baby by giving it some gin. Shut up the baby, give it some gin. That's some good mothering tips just there. In the far background of the image, there's an orphan infant bawls naked on the floor as the body of its mother is loaded into a coffin. And there's loads of scenes within the image of children on the way to rock and ruin. In the front of the pawn shop door is a starving boy and a dog fighting over a bone, while next to them a girl has fallen asleep. Approaching her is a snail, and this emblem is the emblem of sin and sloth. And in the rear of the picture, the Church of St. George's, Bromsley, can be seen, but it's faint and a distant image. And the image that's prominent in the picture is the pawnbroker's sign, which forms a massive corrupt cross for the people of Gin Lane that have chosen to worship somewhere else than the church. With the cost of grain going up, more legislation's coming in, wages going down, and the propaganda of things like Gin Lane, the gin craze started to die out. So we'll get us up to the 19th century even in a moment. So within the 18th century, give rise to a style of gin referred to as Old Tom gin, which is a softer, sweeter style of gin, often containing sugar. Old Tom gin faded in popularity by the end of the early 20th century, when the invention and development of the column still made the distilling of neutral spirits practical. And this then went on to making London Dry style that evolved later into the 19th century. And in the 19th century brings us on to the gin and tonic. Quinine powder was used to fight malaria. However, it was so bitter that British officials stationed in early 19th century India and other tropical posts would mix the powder with soda and sugar to make a soft drink of tonic water. Then later on, they mixed this with gin to make the gin and tonic over in India. Well, thank you for watching all of this. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's certainly given me something to do. We're hoping for next week to have something else. Like I said, I'll be working with Bob to try and get more of a traditional Let's Drink sort of malarkey going on. Please visit our social media things. Oh, it worked this time. Facebook.com/formalshark, at Let's Drink _LS, and formalshark.co.uk. On that, when the website's back up, there's a donate button. If you've enjoyed this and you want us to make more content and stop me starving, as people are at the moment, please visit us. On there, there's a donate button. You don't have to. I know a lot of people are skint at the moment, don't feel like this is some sort of paid content, but it is there. I do hope you've enjoyed it. We'll hopefully get things a little bit better, a little bit smoother. This is the first very new for me, having to do 3 or 4 things. To give you an idea, I've got a feed going in one thing to make sure the quality's good. I've got my script there. I've got to then change to the different scenes, as well as being a numbskull, and try and keep things going. So it's been quite pleasurable to do, but yeah, I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. There's loads of good podcasts and YouTube videos about gin that'll go in more in depth and probably with less messing up as I have done. And thank you very much, and I will see you some other time.